Hey folks, Justin here. In this, our fourth video in our DevOps automation series for Dynamics 365 and Power Platform, we're going to have a look at how to get our portal configuration from our source to our target. Before we get into that, I just want to hope that everybody's safe and healthy during this COVID-19 pandemic, and hopefully it's over and done with soon and we can all get back to some level of normal life. All right, so let's dive into DevOps. So carrying on from our Series 3 video where we did our release management, we're going to extend the build pipeline from video 2 and the release pipeline from video 3 to do our portal management. Now, in preparation for that, what I've done in the repository is I've created a folder for CDS data. Under that, I've created a schemas folder, and in here we have an XML file, which is called the Common Data Service Portal XML file. Now, that comes from a page on the Microsoft Docs site, which I'll link to in the description, which allows you to download an XML file which contains the necessary information that tells what we're going to be doing, how to get the information out of our source and extract it. So as we can see down here, there's various different templates available to us. In this case, we've got a CDS portal. So I've downloaded the first one, the blank portal for CDS. But you can also see if you've got Dynamics 365 with one of its templates, then you can, for example, grab the customer self-service portal template, and that will contain all the configuration for that piece. So make sure you grab the correct file that you're going to need and download that. Once you've downloaded it, then you create your folder structure, and once you're into the relevant folder, just upload the file that you've just downloaded. So that's how we got this XML file in there. All right, so let's jump over to our build pipeline. So this is the same pipeline that we built in video 2. And what I've done is extended it to do the portal configuration. So if we jump into it by editing it, so the first part of it, so we've actually got two jobs in the pipeline now. So we've got an agent job for the CDS solution. That's exactly what we did in video 2, and that hasn't been modified at all. So all I did was went up to the pipeline and say that I wanted to add an agent job, and that's how we got the second job down here. So this is the CDS portal config job. Now, you'll notice that the tasks that we added previously all have the Power App symbol. That's because they're the Microsoft library. Now, the Microsoft library at this stage doesn't allow for handling of configuration data. So, fortunately, there's another library that's available to us, written by Wale Hamzy, who has created a whole heap of extra tasks available to us. So we can see some of them here. And if I just go across, now, you'll remember back to video 1, how we added the library for the Power Apps tools. So you use exactly the same technique and you search for the MS CRM library. Now in this case, I've already got it loaded, so all the tasks are showing. But if you haven't got it, then it will show up in the marketplace. And it's just a matter of getting it for free, including it exactly as we did with the Power Apps library, and then we've got this available. Now you can see there's all sorts of fantastic tasks that are available to us. You can do your solution management using it as well if you prefer to stick to the one library. But we've also got bits and pieces for configuration data, getting solution information, all sorts of wonderful things available. All right, so what I've done here in this job is I've added, similar to the Power Apps tool installer, there's a tool installer, which we need to do first. Then we've got the export configuration migration data. So as you would guess from the name, it's going to grab the configuration data out. Now the slight difference here with using this library is it needs a connection string rather than the actual configuration that we did for the Power Apps library. So what I've done is I've stored that in a variable up here. So we can see here that it's got the standard connection string. So it talks about the URL for the host, what authentication, the username, password. It's all in there. So we configure that as a string in this case. And then if we have a look back, so that's just referring to the variable as we've seen before. We need to refer to the schema file. And if we click on the three dots, it allows us to choose out of the repo, which is where we stored it. So you just select the relevant file that you've grabbed. Then we need to tell it where to actually compile or export the configuration to. So in this case, we're putting it in the artifact staging directory, and we're calling this one the portal config data.zip. So that's going to export it into a zip file in our agent. The next thing we want to do is take that zip file, so that's the data file here, and we want to extract that exactly the same as what we did with the solution. So up here we did the export and then the unpack. This is exactly the same. We did the export, and now this extract is breaking it apart from the actual exported configuration data. Then we tell it that we want to sort the data XML and split it. That's just to make the, when it goes into version control, just to make it a bit tidier. All right, and the last task down here is a command line, exactly the same. It's just copied straight from the one we did previously. And what this is doing is just committing those extracted files into version control. So that's extracting it to version control. So that's half of the equation. Now, if we go over to our release pipeline from video 3 and edit this one, you'll see now this has got 2 jobs. And exactly the same, I added a second job into this one. This one's got a few extra steps. So we need to install the tool installer first. That's how it always needs to be. Then I've got 2 get solution tasks. And what this allows you to do is actually reach into, in this case, the target. So we can see the connection string there. And in this case, I'm going to delve into the Microsoft Portal base solution. And based on that, we can actually extract out, does that solution exist? What the version number is, what the display name is, and we can define variables to put those into. So all I'm interested in this case is to make sure that the portal exists. Okay, and you'll see where I use that in a moment. I've also got one to see if our custom solution exists. So our previous job should have done the work of copying our solution into the target. So I'm just checking, does that custom solution actually exist? And we're using the same variable name for the solution. Now, the next step is that we're going to take the data that's been extracted. So when this job runs, if you remember back, the first thing that it does is it extracts all of the files out of version control and puts them on our agent. So now what we're doing is we're saying, go into this particular folder, which is where it had been extracted to, and pack it back into the file called portalconfigdata.zip in the staging directory. So now we've got it back, ready to do the import. So therefore, the next task is into our target. We're going to load that zip file with our configuration data. Now, we talked about finding out about the solution. Where do we use that? So if we expand out the control options, you see down here, if we change the run this task, which is normally just execute this task if the previous one was successful, if you change it to custom conditions, then you can specify the exact conditions that you want to allow this to execute. So in this case, we're looking that the previous one succeeded. We're also looking at the variable called portal solution exists in target and checking if that's equal to true. And we're also doing that with the custom solution exists in target. So we're actually checking in our target to make sure the portal exists and our custom solution exists. As long as they do, then we proceed. So that's the custom condition set for the packing, and the same thing exists in the actual importing. So that allows us to bypass the importing because if it doesn't have the portal installed in our target and our custom solution, then this is most likely going to fail. Now, probably if the custom solution wasn't there, it would be okay, but we don't want to proceed if the previous job wasn't successful. And the only other thing that I configured is for this second job, if we have a look at it, then we can actually set, normally it just runs regardless and they'll run in parallel, but you can change it to only when all previous jobs have succeeded. So only if the solution got deployed will this job even attempt to run, and then we'll go in and do our portal configuration run. All right. So that's all I've done in extension to videos 2 and 3 to do the portal configuration. So what I'll do is kick this off. Oh, before we kick it off, so here's our source. So we can see that I've added a different logo. I've changed some of the text and removed bits and pieces. And here's our destination. So this is what our destination currently looks like. So what we're hoping is that after this runs, the destination should look exactly the same as our dev environment. So we'll kick off the build pipeline. So we'll run this one. And away that goes. And so what I'll do is I'll run those. Then I'll run the release pipeline once this is done. And so I'll let this one run. I'll come back when I kick off the release pipeline, and then we'll have a look at the result at the end. So we'll be right back. Okay, so the build pipeline is finished its job. So we can see here that the CDS solution was successful, and we can also see that our CDS portal config was successful. Now the result from that is that in our repo, previously we saw that our D365 solutions folder had our solutions. If we have a look under CDS data, we've now got a folder called portal extracted. And if we expand that, we can actually see all of the files that were exported and contain the actual configuration of the portal itself. Now the awesome thing about this, just as with the solution file, is that this actually keeps a history of the changes that were made to the configuration of the portal. And you can roll back or you can extract from any point in time. All right, so now that the build pipeline's been run, I'll run the release pipeline and be back once that's done. Okay, so our release pipeline's finished. We can see here that our deployment of our CDS solution and our CDS portal config were both successful. Now, one thing for those following along at home is if we go back to edit the pipeline. Now, due to copy and paste, which always catches you out, I'd left in the data file the variable for using the build directory. Now, because this is a release pipeline, some of the build variables aren't available, and so that one was a problem. So I just took that out, and now it's just creating the zip file in the default location. And likewise, the same change for the data file in the import step. All right, now up here we can see this is our UAT. It's now reflecting the same changes. I would have loved to do the big reveal, but I needed to restart the portal to clear the cache so that it was ready to go. So there we go. So now we know how to use a build pipeline and a release pipeline to get our portal configuration from our source to a target, and making it really easy to do our portal move. So I hope it's been useful to you. I'd love for you to subscribe and like the video. And in the next video, the final one of this series, we're going to look at how to build our own configuration file to get our reference data across from source to target. So I'll catch you in that video. Thanks. Bye.